Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call roll, please?
Counselor Bolin?
Here.
Counselor Elliott?
Here.
Counselor Fisher? Counselor Furlow?
Here.
Counselor Crissell?
Here.
And Counselor Reeskamp?
Here.
Thank you. And thank you, counselors, for all being here early, and we got our pictures taken today. Next up is approval of council minutes from February 8th, 2017, regular and work session minutes.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the council minutes of February 8th, both regular and work session. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Council minutes are approved. Consent calendar. We have the agenda for Lebanon City Council today. We have the Lebanon Arts Commission, and I'll read that in just a second. We have the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Board, Parks and Tree Committee Board, and the Planning Commission.
Move for approval.
Well, hold on one second. On the Lebanon Arts Commission, I'm pleased to appoint the following individuals to newly established Arts Commission to serve staggered terms, and Gary Marks is the commission chair. We have Cassie Cruz, 3-year term, Jenny Grove, 3-year term, Dan Simmons, 2-year term, Sherry Speaks, 2-year term, Keith Kutch, 1-year term, and Lori McNulty, a 1-year term. And Gary will go into a little bit of details on that.
Okay. I reported before that it was the desire of Mayor Aziz and myself when we were looking at folks to appoint to this commission that we had a balance of folks who not only came from various areas of the arts, but also we wanted at least a couple of folks on there who were good at event organizing and promotion and that sort of thing. So I'm feeling really good about the group we got, and I think Mayor Aziz would tell you the same thing. Of course, I'm up for the chair. As you know, I'm a visual artist and also a manager. Cassie Cruz and Jennifer Grove are both folks who have a lot of background in event promotion and organizing and that sort of thing. Both of them enthusiastic people who I think will represent art projects very well to the community. The remaining 4 are all artists of one type or another. Dan Simmons is a poet. Cherie Speaks works in drama and also in visual arts. Keith Kutch is a visual artist, and Lori McNulty is into the literary realm. So I think we've covered the spectrum pretty well. There's some music. Some of these people in here have music as well. So I'm feeling like we've covered all the bases. These are all excellent people, very enthusiastic about what we're doing, and I'm very excited to have these appointments confirmed by all of you so we can get going on the many projects that are outlined in our strategic plan.
Move for approval of the consent calendar. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent calendar is approved. We have an opportunity for public comments. Anyone, citizen wishes to comment on items discussed at the earlier work session, that was last week, or any other city business, the council welcomes all respectful comments regarding the city's business. Citizens may address the council by approaching the microphone, signing in, stating their name and address for the record. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to comment to the council. Council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. City clerk will accept and distribute comments at a speaker's request. And first up, we have KJL first.
Morning.
Good morning.
Pushing the button. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I feel like a commercial. KJ Olfers, 578 West Sherman here in Lebanon. I was asked to come in because I am going to ask the city for a non-committal letter of support for a transitional housing facility within the boundaries of Lebanon. This is an idea that has been brewing in my brain for a while, from the days when I used to work with Vietnam Veterans of California as a homeless veteran reintegration program manager. And it was something I drew up on a napkin
a couple of years ago and just kind of played with, and lately it got placed on me to do this. And what we're looking to do, Lebanon does not have an issue with giving. Lebanon has an issue with giving, is the problem. We facilitate people to remain in the lifestyle that they have, living rent-free down by the river. I've worked with them at the soup kitchen, through some of the other nonprofits, and some of them were never going to change what they're doing. They've made that conscious decision. Some of them, given an opportunity to change, would. The biggest challenge we have is stable housing while they're getting their feet under them. And what we've come up with is Crossroads Communities. We are, as of today, a 501c3 that wants to set up a transitional housing of apartments, 20 studio apartments and 5 one-bedroom apartments for small families or married couples, and for ADA accessibility, an activity center, and a small diner called the Mess Hall, because I'm an old soldier, so you have to have a mess hall. I'm even going to feed you on mess hall trays, just so you know. But I promise black truffle salt in your gravy. You'll like that. What we envision is we will not be service providers ourselves. None of us have alphabets after our names. We are going to be a hub that's going to bring all the different services to bear that we have in this community to provide those services. This is going to be a fenced, secured facility. You have to key access in and out. It also is going to have something a lot of these folks don't have in their life, and that's accountability. When you come in, and I have provided this for you, if you look at the third page, it kind of gives you a client flow, if you will. This is not a flop house situation. This is, you're going to come in through an entry portal. That might be Teen Challenge. It might be the VA Center at White City. It might be mental health. It might be Chance. But these are folks that are going to come in with an aftercare program. One of the issues these facilities have, and it's common that I've found out, is that once they're done with their treatment, they essentially release them back into the wild, as they call it. They go back to the environment that got them there to begin with. So they have no support system for facing the triggers that got them there. That's what this would provide. And they come in with a plan. Our program managers would facilitate that plan. If you don't follow your plan, you don't get to stay. If you break the rules, certain rules are absolute. No drugs, no alcohol, no assaultive behavior. Any of those things, you're out of the pool. We will have a discipline committee for those minor kind of things that every community has. These folks will all provide service either there, or we would take the folks off-site. The kind of training we would provide there is things like, how do you do laundry? How do you go shopping? How do you open a bank account? How do you do the simple things in life that we just take for granted? How do you cook a meal? Those kind of things. There's probably about 9 things, but I'm held to 5 minutes, so sorry. But we do have, so far, we're working with Lynn County. John Lindsay was briefed on this, and he took this back to his manager to see how they can plug into this. The River Center, LBCC, just started a new program, the Adult Reentry Program, that we are going to plug in with. The Lebanon Homeless Coalition, Chance, Mercy House International, the Soup Kitchen, Ultrex, Family Tree Relief Nursery, U.S. Bank, the Lebanon School District wants to be involved. WVRC wants to be involved. Dell, we're in the works with Dell to supply all the computer systems, and Microsoft has said they will provide all the computer systems, all the software systems for the entire facility at no cost. Those are some of the folks that we've done some work with so far. We are talking with WVRC to use some of their land to place this on. In fact, we have a meeting Tuesday to present our final ideas. They came very close to giving us a letter of intent in January, but they had a couple of questions they wanted answered, and we feel that we've answered those, and we will be presenting back to them. On the last page, you will see, because everybody complained about my drawing, a to-scale layout of what we're looking at for the facility. And we've tried to take into account most everything, and I know we've missed something. I'm just not sure what it is. And that's where I'm at right now. Questions? Yes, sir.
What kind of a budget proposal have you put together?
We're looking for an initial build-out of $2.25 to $2.5 million. And then an annual operating budget, depending on how many people we bring on, somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 a year. We're looking at 9 to 11 staff on site. We also have our plan to be totally self-sustaining within 5 years.
And the location?
Location is, the one we're looking at right now is on 12th Street and Airport.
And are you looking to help, I would imagine, primarily Lebanon people, but you're not going to maintain your facility with Lebanon folks?
No, we won't only with Lebanon. We want to impact Lebanon, which is why I'm talking to city staff, and Ron's going to throw something at the back of my head, and so will Walt. I'm saying we need to cut those park fees because we're making the parks better by taking people out. So I think we need a break. That's just me, though.
Probably just you.
Yeah, probably just me. I'm watching them. But no, we are going to impact Lebanon, but it will not strictly be Lebanon. Simply because we're going to be taking people from, like, the VA center in White City. They have a 1-year substance and mental health abuse in-house kind of thing that we would take veterans from. Same thing with Teen Challenge. They do. I talked with Kyle, who's the executive director there. He's also on my board. They've got about 9 people in their program right now that are from our area. So we will be facilitating for us, but it won't be strictly for us. Yes, sir.
Self-sufficiency, what does that look like? Are you talking about service payments from the individuals?
There'll be some service payments. Our diner that we're going to open up is going to be a way to make money. Plus, it'll be a training facility for folks. We had a request to put in and that's that unnamed building in the upper left, to put in a commercial laundry. All of the big folks in our area, Samaritan, the VA home, are currently shipping all their laundry needs out to Portland. And I know the VA home is looking to build a facility. Well, if we can do it for them, they can outsource it to us. That's another way of getting money sources.
KJ,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is well written, and I think it's an excellent opportunity for our community, for the people in our community, and it really follows with our whole vision. That this is an area of our vision that we just don't have an answer for, and this is a good answer.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate the effort and the time that you've put into this. Obviously, there's a lot of time and blood and sweat into this, I can tell. And the fact that you have Microsoft and Dell already looking at helping out, that's very impressive.
And I did have one other thing. The activity center, because Walt said not to call it a community center. I was listening, Walt. We have 2 opportunities for grants to build that. and one would be from CenturyLink and one would be from Comcast, if we provide free internet access for the community. So we haven't decided which way to go. So any input you guys have as to who you like and don't like would be gratefully accepted. They're looking at grants of $350,000 to $400,000 to build that building alone for us. We're trying to partner with as many people as we can. We don't want to be a one grant kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I would think also Peak would be another person to talk to.
I've been trying to reach out to Rodney, but he won't return my calls. So
Okay.
I'm getting ready to go over and throw a rock through his window.
That would be a good thing because I know they're building out a lot of fiber. So.
But that's just kind of an added bonus, is that we can provide some free internet access for the community. Yes, sir.
What grants could the city facilitate?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What grants could the city facilitate through our connections?
Grants?
I think if it's not a city project,
Yeah.
we cannot.
Access to governmental programs or...
What we have found so far is that if we have, like, the city saying, yes, this is good, we want to support this, I'm not asking you for money or anything, but that stated support goes a long, long way on the grants that we are asking for. And I will tell you, we don't want to do just this. We have identified a grant. We're too late this year, but we can do it next year, that will allow us to partner with ourselves, LBCC, and Lebanon School District to help impact those kids that are identified as at-risk youth, to get them into programs so they don't become our clients, and be able to work with them in that regard.
The reason I brought that up is CDBG is an example. If this were to be prioritized by the city and the county.
Yeah, our CDBG is handled regionally. It's something that we could certainly look into. And as KG said, or inferred, city always stands by to support, whatever the grant request may be that the organization is seeking. And certainly, if CDBG was an option for us, that's certainly something we could follow. But I don't know enough about that right now to respond to it well.
You and I have had conversations on this subject, and so I certainly support, especially any kind of program that has accountability built into it. Mm-hmm. And so it sounds good so far. I like it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to make my own comment on this. When we had Dr. Marbut come to do the assessment before our summit, he came and did an assessment of our homeless situation, and the key missing piece that he identified for us was transitional housing. We seem to have resources for all the other aspects that we could tackle to address our homelessness issue in an effective way. We really didn't have a good solution for transitional housing. So KJ's proposal kind of really cracks that nut wide open for us. If this can actually be successful and happen, I think it'll be a great tool for all the organizations that he mentioned as portals, one of those being the Homeless Coalition that we've formed. As those folks address issues and try to work with individuals to get them off the streets, they'll have some place to refer them to as far as the issue of housing goes. So I think this is an excellent idea, and I hope it's successful.
So do I.
I'd like to suggest to council that I write a recommendation that we're in support of the project. Not necessarily monetary at this point, but just that we're in support of it in general, if the council agrees.
Yes.
Good.
Is that okay,
Here.
Floyd?
I want to disclose that I'm on the board, but I approve.
Okay.
In
Thank
fact,
you,
he's
KJ.
the president of my board.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
Thanks for your organization for making the space available. That's it.
Is there anyone else that would like to address council? I think everybody else is staff out there. Okay, items from council? Seeing none. Items from press? Any questions? from the press. Next scheduled council meetings, March 8th, 2017, regular session. March 22nd, noon, regular session. And as that, we'll go ahead and adjourn, and we'll move into the work session. Call to order the work session. Gary Marks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff members, and the public in the audience. I'll direct the city council to their packets to the tab marked work session, and then go to the last 2 pages in that section. You'll find some matrix that are landscape oriented. When the council adopted the community strategic plan April of last year, you in essence also adopted a set of goals. The plan contains 77 action items, and 36 of those identify the city as the lead partner or the entity that is responsible to carry forth whatever the action item is. So in anticipation of the fact that we needed to implement these 36 items, and also I wanted to present to all of you the staff plan for how we would implement this over the 5-year window of the strategic plan. I worked with each of the department directors who have items in the plan that impact their departments, and we worked out the schedule of reasonable ideas of when the various action items could likely take place. This is a staff working document. I anticipate that it'll change often as opportunities come up or conditions change, but our intention is using this matrix is each year when we start a new budget planning process, we're going to look at each of the items that we've identified for that current year and make some determination about whether the projects are ready to go, and if so, how we're going to implement those as far as any financial needs into our budget process. So we're trying to take a methodical, organized approach to how we implement each of the 36 items that we've been tasked with and that you've already adopted. I'll give you a brief update now on those 36 items. That we now have 17 of them that are either in the works or have been implemented. You'll see at the bottom on the second page, there are 5 items that we've actually accomplished at this point. Things like creation of the Arts Commission, our Coalition on Homelessness, the Downtown Building Restoration Program that you adopted at the last City Council meeting, and a couple of police items as well. So I want you to know that we're moving ahead with this, and this is the document that we've kind of put together as a staff to help us work through each of the items. I'm not really asking the council to adopt this because it is a working document for staff, and you've actually already adopted these items when you adopted the strategic plan in April. Our exercise today, though, is a little different in that it's the council's opportunity to express to the community and to your staff where your major emphasis is for governance. And so in preparation for this, you're all aware that I asked each of you to fill out a survey where I asked you to list your 5 short-term goals and your 5 long-term goals. And I told you that I would evaluate those based on your ranked order of importance. And so I did that. I did an intensity scoring on each of the items that you listed. So, for example, an item that you may have listed as your number 1 choice for short term, that received 5 points. Your number 2 got 4, your number 3 got 3, and so forth. Then I went and I found areas where the council had commonality in your ideas, and I grouped those together and took the scores that you assigned to them and accumulated those. As far as the play between short-term and long-term, I put everything together because as I've done this exercise in my previous cities, and it came out with you folks also, what one council member may list as a short-term goal, another one thinks is a long-term goal, and I'm less interested in whether it's long or short because your staff will work that out and come back to you with a report of how we implement the things that you want us to do. But I went ahead and I put those all together so I could have the totality of the emphasis and your interest in mind as I tried to put together a collated or cumulative idea of where you all, as an elected city council, are focused and the things you would like to see happen in the community. So with that, there's two documents in the packet. One is your ranked goals by your cumulative scores. And then there's a second list that's just one page over, which is also goals that people listed, but typically when I go through this exercise, there's a lot. There's a numerous number of issues which one or two people mentioned. My intent with this exercise was to identify maybe the top 10 where the council had common ideas. I've included staff in here not as any kind of means to direct what our goals are, but just to give you a sense where your staff's thoughts are on some of these. I've ranked the first sheet on your cumulative scores exclusively based on what the City Council reported to me. So with that, I want to run through that list. There were actually 9 items that at least 3 of you expressed interest in. And the scores fall off pretty quickly after that. And so I've presented 9 of these for you to look at. And up here on the screen, I wanted to run through each of these just briefly. And then I have a cumulative list. Brent, why is it not working? What's that?
Not working.
I just need someone to advance.
It's that apple.
Okay,
Move
there it
that
is.
Apple.
Yeah, there you go.
Apple interference.
Okay, so the first one that came out on...
No, they're trying to point it at that.
The first item I called downtown revitalization, and it came in different descriptives from all of you. Things like create a downtown restoration program, create a downtown URD, continue downtown revitalization generally, create economic development position for downtown revitalization. All these items are already in the strategic plan that you adopted. And so rather than scatter these all over and lose the idea that there's interest in downtown, I grouped those together as the idea of interest in downtown. And your cumulative score on that, your elected score, which determined whether this was 1 or 2 or whatever, was 20. That was the highest score received from any item in the exercise. Your staff?
Gary?
Yes.
What's interesting is that's the way it came out with the community also.
Yeah, that's true.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of this mirrors what the community has already told us. Your staff score is 13. Number 2, and there's actually a tie for number 2, the water treatment plant, and that was the idea there, was just to build and complete. I think we all know that that's well on its way. In fact, talking with Ron this morning, we're looking at breaking ground in May. So that's coming right at us very quickly. And of course, we've had the underground utility work going on since last fall or so. So we're well underway with that project right now. Your elected score was 15, staff 29. I think that's only because your staff's really focused on this project on a day-to-day basis. As far as the tie, the next one was city facilities, city hall. Those were described as things such as update the city's facilities master plan, replace city hall building, address unsafe city hall, build or relocate city hall. Those all seem similar, and so I grouped them together. For what it's worth, I would tell you there's a 2-step process. If this is something you want to pursue, I would encourage you first, before we do anything with City Hall, that we update our facilities master plan. It was last done in, I think, 2001 or 2002. There is a lot of information we know about our existing building, which we can fold into this and still get the latest, greatest on what those conditions are. Things like wind shear and earthquake issues that our current building has. But also we have other issues in our facilities that we need to look at. One of the major ones will be, what do we do with the old water treatment plant property once we decommission it? I don't want it to sit there and decay. I'd like to see that property put to a productive use, whether that's a public use or we determine that it should be sold back to the private sector and become a tax-paying property. But I would suggest to you that as far as city facilities go, before we jump into the whole thing of City Hall, let's look at our facilities generally and in the process get more information that's current on our current administrative needs. So those are some of my thoughts on that one. Coming in at number 4 is the Lebanon Transload Facility. Elected score of 14, so just right behind both water treatment plant and the whole city facilities issue. I can tell you I attended a meeting 2 weeks ago put on by Kevin Mannix, who's an attorney in Salem who's heading up this effort. I'm happy to tell you it's gaining a lot of steam, and they're right now forming an LLC, and Kevin is out raising some initial funding for the project. But it's a effort, for those of you who might not be familiar with it, to create a hub, a transportation hub in Lebanon to address the issue in part of Terminal 6 closing up on the Willamette River in Portland. Since that has happened, there's been a significant increase of container truck traffic on I-5 and also moving in through Portland. This is an interesting situation where you have industry interest south of Portland who's interested in developing a better way to transport their goods, and interest among legislators, state legislators in Portland, that they want to get traffic off of the freeways going through the metro area. So there's a lot of interest in this. The state of Oregon, through their Business Oregon, did I think it was a 6-figure study of the facility over this last fall and winter. It came back saying that it was economically feasible and that Lebanon is the ideal location for it. We have a number of things going for us. We have property that's available, ideally situated on the rail line. Our rail lines are unusual in the state in that we have the only one in the central western area that facilitates both major rail companies, BNSF and Union Pacific. So it's a project that's going forward, and at this point I think it's going to happen. But you listed it, and it came out as number 4 on your list of ideas for goals. The next item, which came in at number 5, the formatting got a little confused there. I apologize for that. You all cumulatively scored it at 13, and that's our wetlands mitigation strategy. And as you know, that's a project that's underway right now. Walt and I are working on that. We're getting our wetlands redelineated, and I believe we're going to have something back on that soon, correct, Walt? Yeah. And just to remind those who might not remember or didn't hear, when we looked at the mitigation or the assessment that was done by our local Council of Governments about 8 years ago, what we discovered was that they did a general study that they then used that data to establish where our wetlands were, which was not the best science that you could use. You really needed to do a deeper study with more complexity and identifying all the issues involved. Because it was a general study, it tended to err on the broad side as far as defining where wetlands boundaries lie on the 280 acres of developable industrial land that we have. We had a gentleman locally who owned some of this land who had his land redelineated, and I think it was like a 40% reduction in the land that was scientifically defined as wetlands impacted. So we are in the endeavor now of having a lot of this land that is in the acreage that the COG looked at redelineated, and soon we should have some results back from that. So that's a project that's going forward. The other part of that project is once we have the redelineation done, then we will be looking at a strategy to address developers when they come and the upfront cost of not only buying the land but then paying for the mitigation credits, which pretty much are more expensive than the land itself. That's what's kept some development out of town, and so we are well on our way to address this issue, which you ranked at number 5. Number 6 is an item that shows up in the strategic plan, police staffing, and just to expand on that, the idea in the plan was to make sure that our police staffing is commensurate with our community growth, and that we keep attention on making sure that the needs there are funded. So that came in at number 6 with your score of 12, and you can see your scoring was all, besides the number 1 of downtown revitalization, they're all between, so far, between 12 and 15. So they're all packed right there together, although that's 12. So anyway, that's 6. 7, street rehab program, which is one item that really isn't addressed directly in our strategic plan. We do have the update of the transportation master plan in our strategic plan, but this one received some interest from, actually, it got 3 hits. 2 of them are from 1 council member. However, the idea here is to implement a street rehabilitation program and consider potential funding sources, resurfacing streets, and so forth. Your staff scored that out at 13, so that's something for you to consider. And then the last 2 items were tied at number 8. One is the abandoned residential redevelopment program. This is addressed in the strategic plan as well. The idea here is to develop a way to incentivize the removal of old residential units that have reached a point of decay where it's not likely that someone's just naturally going to come in and buy them. But to clear the land out so we have developable lots that can then be marketed to developers for infill. And then to do whatever we need to do, if appropriate, to incentivize our infill activity through our own policies. So that's something that came up as tied with number 8. And then the last item, also an item from the strategic plan, is to explore the feasibility of a park and rec district. This is something I understand has been kicked around long before I arrived on the scene. But there's never really been as far as I know, a focused effort to really look at this, to draw people together from the various areas that would be impacted or benefited and determine if this is something worth pursuing. The score at this point is getting down pretty low at number 7, but those are your top 9 items. Of course, the council is free to do whatever they want. You can check this whole list if you want and do something else, but I'm providing it to you as a general sense of where you have common interest and to what extent you share those interests. So if there are any questions about any of this, I'd be happy to respond to those. Robert?
I just had one comment with respect to the water treatment plant. I gave it a 6 priority. I did that for the main reason to emphasize our desire to continue, but thought that it was well underway and therefore didn't feel appropriate to give it a ranking at this time.
Right.
Had there been some concern about whether the council's efforts were uniformly behind that, I would have ranked it, but there seems to be enough momentum there that I don't see a need for it to be in one of the top 5.
Right.
That was on a couple of the other ones. I felt the same way, and the police staffing, and as much as I love the police department and support it, I didn't feel there was any problem with it. I didn't feel there was going to be any financial issues or any problems, so I didn't rank that because I didn't think that was a priority, because I just assumed
in mind for the same reason.
Yeah, I just didn't think that was a top priority. I just felt that it was going to be taken care of. That was just.
I did the same thing in terms of those items that were either underway or would be shortly. I did not give them much emphasis because they're...
I would add to all of this that those are all items that you've already adopted through the strategic plan. There are already things that you've told us are important, the community has told us are important, and as you saw from the matrix, we have a plan for carrying all of those out. So the point of this exercise is, where does the council want to come on record putting emphasis or maybe identifying some things that weren't in the plan?
Yeah,
that's the whole idea here. It's understood that there are things that you all support that maybe you didn't rank because you felt that they were underway.
Yeah.
And they're underway because we've already planned for that.
Well, I had a similar reaction to upgrading the City Hall facility, but I felt some of the other development ideas and assessments were going to be first and needed to be done, and I didn't know whether those were going to happen in 2 years or 5 years.
Right.
It had to happen before the City Hall issue can be addressed.
So the goal here is to get a listing of our council goals out of, and this list has helped us.
Right.
I think it's really helpful, and then seeing also staff's comments on this. So we need to look at top 5 or whatever number that we as the council come up with, think are the most important things that are our goals for this year. And so I guess what we need to do is look and see if this ranking is good, if we want to change it.
Well, with respect to that, I think it would also be helpful for Gary to address in a little bit more clarity, do we want to spend a vote on a 1 through 5 for something that's already in the mill, like the water or like the wetlands mitigation? Is there any reason to reprioritize that?
Well, like the Lebanon,
we've already got a lot of synergy behind where we're at.
like the transload facility is underway, but that could be a goal of ours that we still want to see that happen.
Yeah, I would say that regardless if it's already underway, this is your chance to add emphasis, to respond to the community. These are the priorities of your elected city council. We all know there's a water treatment plant going on. We all know that some of these other things are happening. The transload facility, wetlands mitigation, a lot of the things that were included in downtown revitalization. And I don't think there's anything wrong in actually maybe helpful. It would be helpful for the council to articulate where you as the elected representatives of this community are headed. And of course, I think it would almost be expected that some of that's going to reflect things that are underway, that you support these things and that they are important. But of course, it's up to you what you want to do with your goals list, but I think it would help staff to focus and actually reinforce what we're already working on.
I agree. I think if I were a department manager and I were working on the water treatment plant, I would like to see that as something that's still important to city council, and maybe an acknowledgement that they're not going to put 5 other things on my plate because, one of your biggest goals, not that, I'm sure Ron could handle it. You're up for some more stuff. But an acknowledgement that, look, we know this is consuming your life, and it's very important to us. I don't have a problem keeping that kind of thing on there.
I agree with that. And to tell you right now, the staff really has a full plate. We've got a lot going on. So any reinforcement or reassuring you can do, I think is only helpful to your staff, and it's also helpful for the public to see where you're headed.
In that, in that light then, I feel very comfortable with the current 1 through 5 ranking, and that seems to be the case for the staff, with the exception of the Lebanon transload facility, and that would be replaced on their part by the police staffing, and that seems to have gotten a couple of votes from the police chief twice, and so that may be an artifact there.
Well, that was long-term and short-term, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
That's why that number was added up.
So clearly this 1 through 5 seems to be very consistent among staff and the council, and would recommend that we consider these highly.
And I think you could go more than 5, since if there's nothing wrong with going 6, since 1 through 5 has Frank sitting on his thumbs. He doesn't have any He doesn't have anything on here. There's no worries. And you see what I'm saying? As long as it's a different department, as long as every department has a goal.
Well, I'll tell you too, probably most of my department heads won't want to hear me say this, but Frank certainly will. For the police, because it made it on the list here, for that to then become one of your goals, it helps me, because I have a decision coming pretty soon about if we're going to add staff to the next budget, and if we do, which departments get it. If this is truly a priority for you, I need to know that.
And for me, it was a priority as in increasing police staff and presence. So,
we would find this helpful in
I like
even putting this next budget together.
Yeah, I like
agree
one
with
thing.
Rebecca because I made it 6 for me. So I'd feel very comfortable with the council going with 6 and not just 5.
I agree with the 6.
Please.
I think 1 through 6 is good.
You know, in terms of the policing, I didn't rank that very high because I just made the assumption that we're going to increase our staffing for police as needed.
That was my thought too.
And we will, and in fact, it's in the strategic plan already. I think what we're talking about here is just emphasis and just the current idea that the council has weighed in on this. It's going to impact, I can tell you, it will impact my decisions about putting the budget together.
I think there are basic services that are expected from local government, and I think protection is very high for the public.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, it should be high for us as elected officials.
Is there any other thoughts on 1 through 6? Jason?
No, I'm good with that.
Sorry fire wasn't in there, but that's not part of our...
We're our own little world.
Yeah.
Bob, be fine.
Bob's 1 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
Floyd?
Yeah.
Wayne?
Yeah, I'm fine, yeah.
You okay with that? Okay. You have our goals 1 through 6.
You want to do a motion or just...
We can't do that in a work session.
Oh, that's right.
We're in a work session. We're just giving you...
Okay. One thing I'd just like to add as an also-ran, Linda and I ranked something. We were the only ones who ranked it, but it is an important item that I think only people like Linda and I think about. And it has to do with our advisory commission system. We have issues there that need to be addressed as far as refocusing some of our committees, and frankly, even deciding if some of them are necessary in meeting the needs. So I want to make you aware that Linda and I have begun a process of review, which ultimately will be bringing recommendations to you about how we can, if we're going to ask, let me say it this way, if we're going to ask our citizens to serve our community, I want to make sure that it's service that has meaning, that there's purpose in it, and we're not wasting their time, and in fact, the converse, putting their time to good use. And we've not looked at this process for some time, and I think it's time to really examine it and come back to you with some ideas. Right now we have a manual that governs most of the committees. I say most because you just adopted an Arts Commission ordinance, which kind of is standalone right now. The manual we have is kind of a one-size-fits-all, and frankly, when I read through it, I was really baffled that we would want to approach our citizens committees the way that we have. It's very loose, even to the point of committees determining how long their terms are or how many members they have on it. And I just got a real squishy feeling out of that. There wasn't, from what I could tell, any, if I were a citizen reading it, I wouldn't take any great direction out of what's the mission of my group, what's our purpose, what are we supposed to be doing. So what I want to do is I want to bring back to you methodically, one at a time, new ordinances for each of our committees with new ideas about how we can address those. I'll likely come to you and have a discussion first before I bring you ordinances, but I want to make you aware that is something on the radar screen for both Linda and I.
Good idea.
Yeah. Any other comments? Yeah.
Well, just with respect to that, I would hope that even though we have these 6 priorities, at any point in time, Gary, as you work with department heads, if you identify something like that that may be transparent to the council, we'd expect you to bring that to us in an appropriate time with appropriate staffing.
Yep. Which I just did. I just told you that that's what we're looking at, and you'll get a chance, of course, to give us direction on that as we go forward.
Okay. Do you have direction from us now?
Yeah, we've got a list of 6, and not only do we have a list of 6, we also have a list of 36, which you already adopted, but you've now added some emphasis to some of these, and that's very helpful for staff, and I think the community will feel well informed about what your intentions are, what your priorities are. So I thank you.
Yeah, and I know for myself, going through this list, I didn't see anything on that list that I completely thought was out of line or didn't even belong on a list at all. So it was just, when you're prioritizing, you just have to cut things, whether they're good or bad. So.
Yeah, I wanted to do them all in next year.
One thing I want to clarify, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I've never been one, while I've given you a prioritized exercise to go through, I've never been a great believer in when you adopt your goals that you then assign a priority to them, because often goals have nothing to do with each other. And so it makes no sense in most cases to say, well, downtown is more important than the water treatment plant, or the City Hall idea is more important than wetlands mitigation. We react to each of these items, and we plan for each of these items on their own merit, and we take advantage of opportunities when they come. So my assumption, as you give me a list of 6, is that's the approach we're taking. We're going to address these as opportunities, and staff work makes it plausible, feasible, and sensible.
That makes sense.
And I would just comment that it's probably not unusual that some of the others could jump up as the opportunities present itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a list of 36 items that, as you see from the matrix, we're keeping track of those, and as things change, their listing on that matrix will change also.
Okay. Anything else? With that, we're adjourned.